Hello everyone, welcome back, and tomorrow is a huge day for Barcelona. Of course, they play PSG in the second leg of the quarterfinals of the Champions League, and whoever wins this game goes to the semifinals. So it's such an important day for Barcelona tomorrow, so I just wanted to give a preview of the game and talk about who I think is going to be starting for Barcelona, and just an overall view of what I think the game is going to look like. And also some pretty cool news, I did get to see Messi play live this weekend. It was amazing, he scored such a good goal, and to be able to see that live, that was amazing. That's why I didn't post this weekend, and so that game on Saturday and also this game on Tuesday. So it's a really big week for football. So I'm really excited to talk about this game for Barcelona against PSG. And anyways, back to Barcelona versus PSG. And I think that first leg was so interesting to me because obviously all of us were so excited about the result, but I think it was really hard to predict because we didn't know how PSG were going to go into that game. We didn't know Barcelona's game plan going into that. But I think this second leg, we can kind of see what happened in the first leg, and I feel like Barcelona, with the performance that they had and with the result that they got, I don't think they're going to switch that much up. I think they played very well against PSG, and they had a good system that kind of nullified everything that PSG brings good to the table, and for me, I think Barcelona, I don't think they're going to switch that much up. I think we're going to see a pretty similar lineup and a pretty similar game plan tomorrow. There was a lot of talk around Mbappe not having the impact that we're used to, especially in big games in the Champions League. It always seems like he's going to show up, and so tomorrow I have a feeling that he's going to have much more of an impact and more touches, and he's just going to look much more dangerous than he did in that first leg because we can't count on him having that little of an impact again. I think he's going to be there to play, and he knows the team that wins, they're the ones that are going to go through to the semifinals, and of course, in probably his last year at PSG, he wants to take them as far as he can go, and so I definitely think he's going to be there to play tomorrow, and Barcelona, they're going to have another great defensive performance to keep him at bay. And Barcelona, I think they had a great game plan and a great setup to nullify everything good that PSG's attack brings because, they let them have the ball, they let them have possession, and most of the time, Barcelona, they would have a bit more control than they had in that game, but they knew that was going to be a risky game to play against PSG, so they let PSG have pressure, they let them press, and when it was the right moment, Cubarsí or Ter Stegen played a great long ball to Lewandowski, and again, Lewandowski's performance was incredible. He was able to turn and play it off to Rafinha or Lamine Yamal, and that game plan, it worked out very well for Barcelona, and I have a feeling that Xavi is going to set it up like that again tomorrow. In Barcelona, they played very compact, and I think defensively they were great, and they really didn't give that many clear-cut opportunities to PSG, and when those opportunities did come to PSG, I think Barcelona's defense, they reacted very well. I think of those performances from Koundé, from Araujo, and of course Cubarsí. Cancelo as well defensively was good. So I just think Barcelona, they're going to stick to that game plan as well. I think the defense is going to remain the same, and I think that's the right idea because, Barcelona's overall performance in that away game against PSG, it was great. And I think Barcelona, they just had the right setup going into that game, so I don't feel like Xavi is going to change much. Going into the starting lineup, I don't think there are going to be any changes to the back line. I think it's going to be Ter Stegen, Koundé, Araujo, Cubarsí, and Cancelo, and that's going to be the right idea because their performance in that last game against PSG, it was so good. You don't want to really change anything up, and I think of Koundé's performance, and I hope he has another great performance to nullify the impact that Mbappe can have on the game, and just those last-ditch tackles from Araujo and those blocks, we all know how good he is, but that performance on the biggest stage was incredible, and I hope he has a performance like that again tomorrow. Cubarsí as well, his passing, just his composure and his calmness on the ball, it's going to help Barcelona out, and it's going to be a big way that Barcelona can actually break through PSG's press and move forward. And Cancelo, again, I don't think he's going to have that freedom to go forward, but defensively, he was pretty good. So again, I don't think Xavi's going to mess with the defense at all. I'm going to be very confident that that's going to be the starting back line for Barcelona tomorrow. And then moving into the midfield, I think it's kind of hard to predict, and I'm not exactly worried about that, but I think there's some question marks of who's going to play because obviously Christensen, even though he didn't start in that game against PSG, which was a surprise, he's going to be a big miss. And then, of course, Roberto, I think he did have a decent performance in that game against PSG. He does a lot of dirty work, and he runs as hard as he can. I think he does make a positive impact on the team, so he's also going to be another miss, and we're going to have to see if Pedri is 100% fit because he had another 30 minutes in that game over the weekend for Barcelona, so I have a feeling that he might be ready to start tomorrow, and if he is, I think Xavi, of course, he would put him in the starting lineup because sometimes coming back from injury, you look a little bit slow and sluggish and maybe not up to the tempo, but Pedri, that's not the same. He looks exactly in place, and so if he is 100% fit to start, I think he would be starting. And the two guarantees are going to be Gundogan and De Jong. De Jong, I know there's been some talk about his defensive performance, and some fans have brought up clips of him, moving out of the way of the ball or maybe not tracking back, and looking at the goals, yeah, maybe he could have done a little bit more, but we know that De Jong is not known for his defensive work rates. Sometimes it's, a little lapse of concentration that does cost Barcelona, but I think what he does on the ball, it does outweigh the defensive liabilities sometimes, and, it's unfortunate that Christensen is injured because I think the midfield of Christensen, Gundogan, and Frenkie de Jong, or Pedri as well in there, I think that would have been great, but of course, you've got to readjust, and you know that Christensen isn't going to be available for the game, and you're going to have to see how Barcelona can react. And so for me, it's pretty likely that the midfield tomorrow is going to be Gundogan, Frenkie de Jong for sure, and then either Pedri or Fermin Lopez. It depends if Pedri is 100% fit, but I'm okay with that midfield. I think I do worry about, the beginning of the season and a couple months ago, really, where Barcelona just struggled so badly without a defensive midfielder, and they just lacked that control, and I know that Christensen didn't start in that game against PSG, so Barcelona, they did realize that they could play against PSG without a defensive midfielder, but who knows how PSG are going to react to that, and they know that Christensen isn't available. So it's just maybe mind games in that way, because if Barcelona don't play with a defensive midfielder, I think about that game against Atletico Madrid, where it was Pedri, Frenkie de Jong, and Gundogan, and that was such a good midfield display. That's for me the best performance that they've had this season. So I don't know, it's hit or miss. I think it is a little bit risky to play without a true defensive midfielder, but given the options that you have, I think it is going to be Pedri, Gundogan, and Frenkie de Jong. But if Pedri's not 100% fit, then it would be Fermin Lopez taking his place. And going into the game with a 1-goal lead, I definitely do not think Barcelona should be parking the bus, because, that's what Barcelona tried to do a couple years ago in the Champions League, and it never worked out. You have to try and play against these teams. In these big games, you're going to succumb to pressure if that's all you try and do is just kick it out and don't have any possession. So Barcelona, of course, they have to try and maintain and control this game, but without a defensive midfielder in front of the defensive line, I'm a little bit worried about that space. But again, Christensen is injured. He's not injured. He's suspended for this game. So, what options does Xavi have? To be honest, I understand there's going to be some worries there, and I hope Gundogan, Frenkie de Jong, and Pedri, they can all help out defensively. They're not going to have that same freedom to go far forward and enjoy, 70% of the ball. I just don't think that's going to happen. But, you got to have a good performance, and defensively, I think the back line has done so well, especially in that first leg. So we're going to have to see how well the midfield does. I think it's likely that, they're not going to have as much as the ball, but hopefully defensively they're compact enough. Frenkie de Jong and Gundogan and Pedri are all good defensively, and hoping that they have a good performance tomorrow. Moving up top, of course, Lewandowski is going to be starting, and rightfully so, because that performance, I said it in the last video, I think that was his best performance in a Barcelona jersey, was in that first leg against PSG, and I hope he has a great performance again, and we're going to need him because, those long balls when PSG are trying to press and Kubarsi just plays it out to Lewa, his hold-up play is going to be really important. If he can make a quick turn and send Barca on the counterattack, I think that's going to be really important. And that was a big part of Barcelona's game plan in the last game against PSG. So, again, I hope Lewandowski has another great performance. And then the two wingers is going to be interesting because I think it's more than likely going to be Lamine Yamal on the right and then Rafinha on the left. But there have been some reports that maybe Joao Felix would be starting on the left and then Rafinha would move to the right. And Lamine Yamal, he wouldn't get a start in this game. And, that's a difficult decision for Xavi. I think for me, Lamine Yamal, yes, he didn't have the best performance in that game against PSG, but, 16 years old going up against Nuno Mendes, who was great in that game, and Nuno Mendes is so good defensively, it's going to be really difficult for Lamine Yamal to get past him very often, so I'm definitely understanding Lamine Yamal, not having as big of an impact as we're used to, even though, for that first goal, he did have a great Trivela pass that ended up in a Rafinha goal, so it wasn't a bad performance, but just, they did limit the impact that he had on the game, so I understand some people saying that maybe Joao Felix would be starting on the left and Rafinha would move to the right. But the guaranteed starter in that three is Rafinha. Whether he's going to start on the right or the left, I think he did really well on the left, and I was happy with his performance there. And, I had said that I really never want to see him on the left, but I think in this time when you need a player like him on the left that's working hard, that's tracking back, that's able to make a big impact in these big moments for Barcelona, yeah, you want him on the field. And so I would understand him playing on the left again, and I think that's more than likely what's going to happen because he had such a good impact on Barcelona in that game against PSG. So I have a feeling that he's going to be starting on the left, and I do think Lamine Yamal is going to start again on the right. And who knows if that's not working, I could see Lamine Yamal getting subbed off, Rafinha moving to the right, or maybe Rafinha getting subbed off, and then Joao Felix coming in as a left winger. And I would be okay with that. I do think Joao Felix, he does add some quality to the team, and sometimes he goes missing in these games, and he doesn't have the best defensive work rates, especially compared to Rafinha. I still think he's able to find a way to open up the defense, and he does add something different that not many players on Barcelona they have right now. Just those 1-2, combination plays, and the great dribbling, the shooting from long range. I think he does add something different, so I wouldn't be against him either starting or coming in at some point in the game. I definitely think we're going to see him at some point. But for me, I think it's more than likely going to be Rafinha on the left and then Lamine Yamal on the right with Lewandowski up top because it worked for Barcelona against PSG. And again, I don't think Xavi is going to switch that much up. And Barcelona had such a great performance in the first leg, but they're going to have to play even better if they want to progress to the semifinals. And, this is the quarterfinals of the Champions League. You don't expect anything different. This is a great team that you're coming up against. It's a huge challenge for Barcelona, but I hope Barcelona players are excited for it, and I hope they show that same intensity and that same talent that they did in the first leg. And for PSG, I do think they're going to switch up their attack. It might be Ramos, it might be Barcola. Whatever they do, they're going to have talent on the field. And Barcelona's defense, they're going to have a great performance. And it's the quarterfinals of the Champions League. You don't really expect anything different. This is a great team that you're coming up against. And Barcelona, it's one team progresses. And if they want to get to the semifinals, they're going to have a great performance tomorrow. And I'm just really excited about this game tomorrow. And it's just so difficult to predict how the game's going to go because there's so many factors that go into it. And I hope Barcelona's team, they're ready to play tomorrow. And again, it's PSG. It's a really difficult team. And Barcelona at home, you have to feel like the fans are going to help them out a lot as well. And so Barcelona, I hope they have a great performance tomorrow, and I hope we see a really exciting game. And thank you very much for watching my video. I really do appreciate it, and I hope we all enjoy Barcelona's performance tomorrow, and I hope it's a really exciting game for us to watch. I know a lot of Barcelona fans are maybe a little bit nervous, but you just got to be excited. You got to be excited for this chance because it's not, oh, what if Barcelona lose tomorrow? It's, can Barcelona have a great performance? Can Barcelona win tomorrow? And I think Barcelona can. I believe in the team. I believe in Xavi, so I think Barcelona, I hope they have a great performance tomorrow. And again, thank you for watching my video. I do appreciate it. And hope you all have a great rest of your day. Visca Barca. See you tomorrow. Peace. Okay, I thought I was done, but actually then I thought, what if Fermin Lopez starts for the first 60 minutes and then Pedri comes on? Because I was looking through Twitter and I actually do understand some of the viewpoints that if you start with a midfield of Pedri, Gundogan, and Frenkie de Jong, and then you have to make substitutions, it's Fermin Lopez and Oriol Romeu. Those are the midfielders that you could bring on. And for me, Oriol Romeu, I feel bad for him on a personal level because he is a great player, but it just hasn't worked out at Barcelona. And so I'm just worried about how the game goes. If PSG score a goal, would it be better to bring Pedri off the bench around the 60th minute? Then he can make an impact. I think possibly Xavi might think about that, and maybe he would start Fermin Lopez because, who knows, maybe it goes into extra time, and then if you're playing in extra time with a midfield of, Fermin Lopez, Oriol Romeu, and then one of Gundogan, Frenkie de Jong, and Pedri, you might lack a little bit. So I don't know. It's a difficult situation, but I don't know if there's any perfect scenario, but that's an interesting thought. And I guess let me talk this out more. Let's say Frenkie de Jong, Gundogan, and Pedri, they all start. And then in the 60th minute, let's say, none of them get hurt. Let's say in the 60th minute, you need to make a change. You take one of them off, and then it's Fermin Lopez that comes on. And then let's say the game does go into overtime. Of course, we can't predict that. You want to win it in 90 minutes, but let's say it does go into overtime. Then Oriol Romeu would be the substitute in the midfield. And I just worry about that. So I don't know exactly what's going to happen. Like I said, there's no perfect scenario. Like a lot of the times, it's pretty easy to say who should start because, if the game's not going into overtime, but then you got to think about that as well. So it's a difficult situation. We don't know exactly who to start. But I would just be worried if that midfield three does start, which is Barcelona's best possible midfield given the options that they have. It might be lacking something if they do need to bring another substitute on. So would you actually start Gundogan, Frenkie de Jong, and then Fermin Lopez to bring that intensity in the first 60 minutes, and then you plan on Pedri coming on in the 60th minute to hopefully, put up a good 30 minutes, or depending on if it goes into extra time, it would be even more minutes. I don't know. It's really difficult, and the more I think about it, the more I'm actually confused what I would rather see. Obviously, ideally, you would want Pedri to be starting every single game, but would you rather bring him on the bench? Let's say if Barcelona does need a goal, but then in the 60th minute, because he's not 100% fit and he most of the time doesn't play a full 90 minutes, he's not going to give as much in that next 30 minutes when you need a goal. So, I don't know, maybe I'm overthinking it, maybe I'm talking about it too much, I don't know, but if Fermin Lopez does start, then depending on what the game needs, Pedri could come on and do well. I don't know. It's a really difficult situation, honestly. So if Fermin Lopez does start, I wouldn't actually be surprised, and I wouldn't be against it, even though I think Pedri, of course, he's better than Fermin Lopez, and ideally he would be starting every single game for Barcelona if he's healthy. But, I don't mind Pedri coming on in the last 30 minutes of the game. If Barcelona do need a goal, if they need to kind of just shape up the game and see it through, we don't really know what the game is going to need. So, maybe Fermin Lopez starting wouldn't be the worst thing. And then depending on how the game goes, you kind of want your last players, when you need it. You don't want to come in and have a midfield of Fermin Lopez, Oriol Romeo, and then maybe Gundogan, Frankie de Jong. I don't know. I would just think maybe Barcelona's midfield, they would be lacking in the last 30 minutes if they had to bring on substitutes. So just another thought. Anyways, now I think I've talked about everything. So thank you all again very much for watching my video. I really do appreciate it. Hope you all have a great rest of your day. I hope Barcelona has a great performance and a great game tomorrow. And I will see you all later. Thank you very much. Peace.